I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Roll call. Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Mugia.
Here.
Maddox.
Here.
Kane. Markley.
Here.
Walters. Philbrook.
Here.
Walker. Holland.
Here. Thank you all for being here tonight. This evening, the invocation is being given by Reverend Mike May. I invite you to please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
In this bleak midwinter, we pause for a moment of silent prayer for all those who are being very heavily hammered by severe weather, especially for those who seek to do rescue, recovery, and repair work in very hazardous conditions. Lord, hear our prayer. Father, lead us tonight into truth, your truth whereby we may establish a justice based upon your goodness, your love, and especially your mercy as the standard. Teach us your ways. Help us to discover your ways in the goodwill of our fellow citizens as we seek the common good here this evening. Amen.
Ms. Cobbins, are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a blue sheet has been distributed. We have additions and we have an update. Under the additions, there will be a presentation by Representative Aldenia Nguyen and a representative from the state of Kansas Corrections regarding the opening of a parole office at 7th and State Avenue. Under the non-planning agenda, there's an update under item number 1, SP 2013-46. A valid protest petition has been filed with the clerk's office protesting SP 2013-46 for an event center at 2951 South 34th Street. The petition represented 62.94% of the property owners.
Okay, thank you very much. I had a request from Representative Aldenia Nguyen, one of our representatives to the state, who made the request to come forward and speak to the commission tonight. And so, Ms. Nguyen, we thank you for coming, and we afford you the opportunity to speak. Our normal tradition is to afford you about 5 minutes, and then to also afford the State Department of Corrections some time as well. So I would invite you to speak. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Mayor Holland, Commissioners, Administrator, good evening. I'm State Representative Aldenia Nguyen, 1044 Washington Boulevard, Kansas City, Kansas. I appreciate the opportunity to stand before you tonight to express my strong opposition to the proposed Department of Corrections relocation of the Wyandotte County Parole Office from 18th and Loyal to 712 State Avenue. I asked to appear before you tonight because I'd like to ask a few questions, get some clarification, and hopefully we can get as close as we can to the truth. Because I've only heard about this relocation 15 days ago. My constituents are very concerned, I'm challenged, and so I appreciate you allowing me to speak. Among the challenges, the questions I continue to ask the Department of Corrections, the answers change. So my questions are as follows. When did you first know, you the commissioners, know about the relocation to 712 State Avenue? And actually, if you would permit me, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask a response. Is that in your rules, or is it not?
We can work with you.
I appreciate that. My district runs from 2nd to 75th, state to Georgia. So I'd like to ask Commissioner Maddox, since it is in the 4th district, I understand you've met with the owners and you met with our neighborhood, and when did you first know?
Thank you. I first was told about
the actual relocation from a constituent whose child attends Panorama Daycare. And she had called me and told me that she was concerned that it would be a parole office. So when I went up to the place to ask them what would it be, because some people thought it would be a grocery store, some people thought it would be different things, they told me then that it would be a parole office. So that was my first time hearing about it, and I was a little somewhat distracted because I thought it was always the protocol of government and local government that we notify commissioners of what's taking place in their districts, be good, be it bad, you know. So I wasn't told about it. I heard about it from a constituent, and then kind of went into the business owner, and they told me more about it, and including the fact that they had been on the news. And so that was my first time hearing about it, and I was somewhat distracted by it, just along with
And
you.
likewise, and I'd like to ask how early the rest of you knew about this relocation.
Any response? Yes. Commissioner McKiernan?
Well, I had heard about it, again, nothing ever official from the state. I had heard about it through the grapevine a few weeks ago, but was told at that time they'll do what they want to do and there's nothing you can do about it.
Commissioner Murguia?
I saw it on Channel 41, the news.
Commissioner Kane?
Same thing, saw it on the news.
Commissioner Townsend?
Good evening, I saw it on television.
I heard about it around the holidays before the first of the year, and was told that because it was already zoned commercial, it did not come before us as a new rezoning would have done. So I was told that it was a done deal, and so that's my timeline as well.
And that's another challenge, because whoever told you it was a done deal, quote unquote, there's never a done deal at the state of Kansas. Trust me, I know. After 14 years, there's never a done deal. And so, you know, is the person who told you a done deal, I mean, on what basis did they say it was a done deal?
Well, I'm writing down your questions. I think the key for me is when we had this come forward, and when I heard about it from downtown shareholders. And at the time that I heard about it, I was not made aware that it was adjacent to the daycare. I was heard that the downtown shareholders, they said there was a parole office coming into downtown, that the state had already decided on the location, and it wasn't brought to my attention until after the first of the year that it was adjacent to the daycare. Right. So that was new information for me even more recently. So my question would be also, in terms of a state agency, what would you be able to do to help us with the state agency as a representative? Because I think we would look to you for some leadership in that as well, in terms of what you think we can.
Well, that's why I'm here, because we have to work together. It's my understanding that your obligation is, yes, correctly in the zoning part. My obligation, as well as your obligation, is to protect all of our citizens. The challenge I have is that I found out 2 weeks ago, long after you all. Being in Topeka, I didn't even see the news. So constituents ring my phone off the hook, and I'm playing catch up. I was also, ever since finding out, I have had constant, is the Secretary of Corrections here?
Mr. Roberts is not here, but he did send a representative, and I'm going to have her come forward and make a statement here in a moment as soon as you're
okay.
As soon as you're finished.
I've had 3 conversations with him, and he told me that the chief of police, Kansas City, Kansas, negotiated that location. And so that is another one of my questions. Here is our top officer who is to protect us, and he chooses a location that is adjacent to a daycare, not a small daycare, one that is licensed for 150 children, that if you know the location, you can stand and point to the building, you can point to the senior citizen facilities, and so this concerns me. Whenever you found out here is another challenge. I mean, I'm just full of challenges this evening. Normally, as you suggested, protocol would have been to pick up the phone, call the director of corrections, and question whether this was the proper location. Another protocol would have been to call me. Because this licensed child care facility serving 150 kids is as close as 10 feet. I asked Secretary Roberts, he said he had not seen the location, but he did correct his statement and he did sign the lease. But that the vulnerable groups of children, of senior citizens, there's no way that this is a proper, appropriate location. So here's my conclusion as far as to my thought processes these last 2 weeks. And again, I don't mean to offend. I'm not looking for a witch hunt, but this is what I've come to conclude. Either, and I'll say I don't agree with this one, either you do not care about the 150 children and the senior citizens, or for some people, obviously, it was an appropriate location, or, and this is the one that I'm walking a tightrope, for some, I believe it may have been more important for the money, to protect the money of the individual who owns the building, who signed the lease. I checked the records. The 712 State Avenue LLC company filed its papers on September 30th. The lease, Secretary Roberts told me, was signed about November 2013, and your work permit that's up on the wall is stamped December 19th, 2013. In my opinion, that's long enough for some communication. It didn't have to be a done deal. I don't believe it is still a done deal. If those 3 reasons are not correct, then I think we can work together, all of us, working with the Department of Corrections, because we all know if the Department of Corrections had gone to the Legends and said, I want one of these vacant buildings, no. No questions. If the Department of Corrections had gone to Tots and Tails, our Montessori school out on State Avenue, no. No questions. If they had gone to the daycare in Old Piper, grade school, Commissioner Kane, you've called me. I know you would have, or you called somebody. Or next to the new South Branch Public Library in Argentine, or 60th and Parallel, or the new Turner High School, I know for a fact some of you all would have called somebody. And so that is a challenge, that this location did not raise a red flag. Secretary Roberts told me he did not see the location before signing. That, to me, warrants looking for another location. I'm now here, again, to seek your help in working together to find another location. We do recognize that there is a need. I know you know the details. We're talking 600 parolees. Some have to report once a week. Some have to report more than once a week. 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. We don't know what their offense is. They have low risk. Let's see, how to put this. They have passed a survey. So they may be identified as low risk reoffenders, which is a piece of paper. We do know we want people to be rehabilitated. That's not the challenge. But the challenge is 10 feet from a licensed child care facility serving 150 children, senior citizens facilities. I think we can work together to find another location so that the owner can recoup his investment. We're talking $10,000 a month, $150,000 a year, And the challenge of letting this go through in this location, this is a 10-year lease. You do not know the type of crimes that these individuals who have served their time, yes, committed. And so for the safety of the children, I think this is the challenger. Stand for questions whenever, and thank you for the opportunity.
I would like to invite the woman from the Department of Corrections to come forward, please. And it's Kathleen. And I'm sorry, Graves, thank you. Kathleen Graves from the Department of Corrections to please present.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity to present. I will tell you that the Chief of Police had nothing to do with the lease. So I'm not sure how you got that information, but okay, no, the Chief of Police has been supportive of our relocation, but was not responsible for any of the negotiations of the lease. I apologize if we miscommunicated that, but no, I need this body of people to understand that she didn't have anything to do with that. Our lease in our current location, which is on 18th Street, was coming due. So we entered into an RFP process, which is the standard process for the state of Kansas. We received 5 bids. 3 of those were in the downtown area. We went through the bid process as we always do and decided on the location that we currently are at because the space met the needs that we had, and it was the most economical place that we could be for the money that we had available in our budget. I would say that what we bring to this particular area in terms of security is the fact that we've got an armed officer in our office that provides some security and does surveillance. In fact, the parking lot in the building that we'll be moving to on State uses that parking lot to watch the community resources that our offenders access. The reality is that our offenders are in the community already. They have served their time. There are 575, as of yesterday, offenders under supervision, parole supervision, in Wyandotte County. And there is a significant number that live in a very concentrated area bounded by I-70 and 635 over to the river. And I'm not sure how far north that goes because I'm not familiar with that northern boundary. But it looks kind of like that area up there. Those offenders are already living in this community. So what the parole office does when we're in a community, those offenders don't want to spend a lot of time there. That's the reality, and they are in their best behavior when they're there. And I understand that citizens in the community are concerned about elderly, that they're concerned about children. I'm a grandmother, I'm a mother and a grandmother, and I had elderly parents. I would be concerned too. So I do understand that. But the offenders are already here in the community, and the resources that you have in this core urban area are plentiful for offenders that are homeless, for offenders who are unemployed. Our unemployment rate for offenders in Wyandotte County is 43%. So they come to this area to access those resources that help them stabilize in the community so that they can succeed. I know one of the concerns is for sex offenders. Only 18% of the population in the community is a sex offender. Only 18%. And the other thing I would tell you, 3 out of 4 children who are abused sexually are abused by family members and significant others of the family. It's not strangers that we have to be concerned with. We all manage risk on a day-to-day basis. And one of the things that we do well is to try to manage that risk for offenders. We watch what they're doing. We We put them on electronic monitoring if they are not doing what they're supposed to do. If they've been convicted under Jessica's law, they're also on electronic monitoring for life. We have the special agent that goes out and does surveillance. He does surveillance in our parking lots and will continue to do that in the parking lot and provide that particular aspect of security. The other thing that we have done when we found out that it was next to the daycare is I have, for the first time in any parole office in the state of Kansas, is I have ordered security cameras installed on the exterior of the building that will record 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and will be monitored by staff while we are open during the business hours, so that we know what's going on in our parking lot, so that we can try to protect those children that are next door. The lease is a 10-year lease. That is correct. We want to be good citizens in this community. We want to work with the community. We live in the community. I don't personally live in the community, but my staff do. The people who work for me do. They live here, they work here, they have children who go to school here, and they understand the risks to their children. I don't know, I will stand for questions at this point in time.
Okay. I'm looking at the clock. We have a full agenda tonight. I did want to make sure we had time for this. I want to give us about 7 or 8 more minutes to get us to 7:30, and then we're going to need to move forward on the rest of our agenda. My hope was to begin this conversation tonight in the public forum, but I have 2 commissioners that have wanted to speak, so I'm going to, but we can have more. But I'd like to keep it as tight as possible so we can keep moving on our agenda. Commissioner Walker.
Yes, sir.
Your microphone, please.
I've been around City Hall a long time.
Yes, sir.
This is not the first time that the state of Kansas has wanted to put a Department of Corrections facility in our community. I can think of when we did 18th Street. I can think of there were some apartments further up on 18th Street that they were going to use at one time. I'm at a loss to understand how this process could get so far and neither the local government nor apparently our representative delegation in Topeka could not be included in the discussion, that at least be signed, and that someone, and I certainly realize that the Secretary of Corrections and the governor do not handle every little detail, but I've listened to the rhetoric of the governor and his family value kind of dialogue, and here we are putting 600 parolees, whether they've done their time or not is a question that most of us don't really ever know because they turn them out so often just to make room for the new ones coming in. I mean, I find it unacceptable that neither my representative, I'm sure, Representative Nguyen, who represents that district, the mayor, this commission, was not given the courtesy of having at least an opportunity to weigh in on this before this resolved. I guess I'm suspicious that this would not occur in any other county of this state in this manner except Wyandotte County. And I'm sorry if that, you may not be at that grade where that political decision factoring comes in, but I know they would not put a parolee center in Johnson County next to a child care facility. And I would like to work with you to find some other place, and I remain open to that, but I will tell you, I am not going to accept it where it is.
Please, I would ask, we do want to honor the decorum of our place. We have people that agree and disagree on a variety of issues, and we do ask that you not clap or respond to the comments. Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a couple questions to ask you. The first question was, who made the initial sign-off for the parole building to be at that location?
The initial sign-off, sir?
Yes. Who made the decision to put it there?
The bid process has a negotiating committee that makes the recommendations. The first signature that goes, as it goes through that process, was mine.
Okay. You chose that location.
The negotiating committee chose the location. The lease goes through a signature process where it's vetted through, and the first signature was mine.
Okay, thank you. And then I wanted to know, why did the parole office move from 18th Street to its current location? Because it was my understanding that many of the people didn't want it around the Prescott Plaza, so they pushed to have it moved elsewhere, and then that's where it initially was moved to. So why did it move?
From 18th Street?
Yes.
We had insufficient space to accommodate the staff that we had and to accommodate the groups and treatment opportunities that we give to offenders there for batterers intervention programs and cognitive programs.
Okay.
The lease was up, and so the other process, when the lease is up, you reopen it, you put out an RFP, request for proposals for locations.
Okay. And is it not against state statutes for a sexual offender to not be in a location where it is known to be within 300 feet of a child?
There is no state statute that I'm aware of, sir.
Okay. So how many feet is it known to be where a sexual offender has to not be around a child, knowing that they're there?
There is no statute that determines a distance. In our policies and practices in managing sex offenders, we issue conditions and put restrictions on them that say they can't, for lack of a better word, linger or loiter around areas where children congregate. So they're prohibited from doing that. There's nothing that says if they have to go to City Hall, or if they have to go to the county courthouse to register, or if they need to go pay their taxes or their fines, if on the way they go by a daycare, that's not illegal and it's not against policy. They just can't stop and linger. We do work with them in terms of their safety plans to try to find ways around that so that they don't hang around those areas, so that they don't pass by them, if at all possible. It's not always possible for that to happen. We also, when we are approving home plans, we do look at, are there children in the home? And if this is a sex offender that offended against children, we are going to prohibit them from being there unless a treatment provider says that it's safe for that offender to live in that home with that child, that it's safe for the child.
Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that I found a problem with you saying that it's only 18%. You gave percentages and you said it's only, but it seemed like in your approach and presentation it is to say that why it's okay to put it there, but to say that it's only 18% is still a nice amount of individuals who are sex offenders, and you're putting them in the surrounding of young people, and I just find it as an issue, and I side with Commissioner Walker, in saying that I think we have to find another location, and I would like to be involved with that process.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Kane.
18% is over, right here, because you're going to remember this. 18% is still over 100 people. You wouldn't want 100 people around your grandbabies. I just had grandparents day to day, and if that thing would have been outside where my grandbabies were at, I'd have been really upset, and you would have been too. I'd like to know who the owner of the facility is. I want to know why we don't know who they are. I want to know this, and we're the recipient of what the state's done the last couple of years, where the city doesn't get to do what they want to do, such as prevailing wage. Representative Wynn, any place, anytime in Topeka, to anybody you want to talk to, I'll be there with you. Because you are right. If something happens in the district, and the District 5 is not just Piper, but when something happens in the district, the commissioner is to know, not find out by the news. And it is absolutely the wrong message. The state says, we don't care what you commissioners in Wyandotte County want to do because we're going to do it anyway.
Commissioner Townsend.
Good evening. I'm going to keep this short because I know the mayor, we're looking at time, but I did want to say this. Even if there was no zoning issue, which I believe when I heard the news is how this got by us for the most part, there was something that was shocking to me. And it's not just a matter, I think a lot of people feel, about it being the less expensive place for this facility and fitting someone's budget, but there ought to be some sensitivity to what is appropriate. And I just believe that the community feels a sense of shock that even if zoning is currently correct, it's a good numbers move, a business-wise move. There should have been, I think, some thought of sensitivity given to where you're putting this situation, this facility.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that's what a lot of people feel here. There's just, it was wrong in that respect. So,
Thank you. I would like to ask, ma'am, if you could continue the conversation with Representative Wynn and with Secretary Roberts. If you could please take this feedback back to Secretary Roberts. I don't think there's anyone that's excited about having this facility 10 feet from a child care in our community. I think that was a major oversight. It was a mistake that was made, and my hope is that we can find a solution to that. I have heard some commissioners here who have volunteered to participate in that conversation. I would ask you to be participants in that moving forward. But I want to thank you for coming tonight and for sharing the story. I think that was very appropriate. I wish we could have done that 2 months ago.
Yes, sir.
But I appreciate your coming at my request tonight. And Representative Wynn, I want to thank you for bringing this forward and for standing up tonight and speaking. So thank you very much. And if you would please keep us posted. You call, letter, email, whatever. Keep us posted on how this progress is going. We want to stay informed. Certainly the commissioners who spoke today, we want to make sure are informed.
Mayor
Thank you
Holland,
very much. Yes.
may I ask one question? I have Mr. Maddox and Mr. Kane. Mr. Walker, were you also volunteering, sir? Okay.
Okay.
It's not, although,
Commissioner Townsend, are you interested in being a part of the conversation as well?
okay.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your coming tonight, and we'll look forward to hearing the resolution. All right. That brings us now to our regularly planned agenda. We have our planning and zoning meeting tonight. Our planning and zoning meeting is covered by a number of state regulations, and we're going to ask the clerk to please read the statement and the planning and zoning consent agenda.
We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor Mark Holland, Commissioner Hal Walker at Large District 2, Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, Commissioner Ann Mugia, District 3, Commissioner Terrence Maddox, District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6, Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each petition is called this evening, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before this commission, the commission has 3 options. Number 1, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. Number 2, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. And number 3, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration, together with a statement specifying the reasons for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the Planning and Zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or staff, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the mayor will ask if there are any requests to set aside items from the consent agenda. This is your time to stand up and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. Most of the petitions before the Commission tonight may be determined by a simple majority vote. However, if protesting property owners representing 20% of the land area within 200 feet of an area in question have signed and filed a protest petition, at least 9 votes by the Commission will be required to approve the change of zone position. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. Once the petitioners make their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 5 minutes to state your views. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. The mayor and the commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the planning and zoning agenda. I will ask if any members of the commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any items on the agenda.
All right, I will now receive disclosures from the Commission. Commissioner Markley.
This is on the non-consent agenda. It's SP 2013-46. I've had contact with opponents and proponents.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane.
Same thing, non-consent, special use permit 2013-46, an opponent.
Thank you. Commissioner McKiernan.
I've had contact with opponents of SP 2013-46.
Thank you. Commissioner Walker.
I've had a communication from the proponent for 2013-46. I've had a meeting with the proponents of 2013-46.
Thank you. Commissioner Philbrook.
I have had information sent to me by people that are against it, and I've been in contact with the people that are for it on SP 2013-46.
Okay. The records show I see no further disclosures.
I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Changes on application item number 1, Sean Haggerty with Absolute Construction LLC. Request to remove 2 restrictions from the final plat at 7200 Taromie Avenue, recommended for approval. Special use permit application item number 1, SP 2013-53, Tanya Metzler. Special use permit for an after-school program Monday through Friday, supervised and operated by the YMCA of Greater Kansas City at 1100 County Line Road, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 2, SP 2014-1, Michael and Janet Vital. Special use permit for a kennel for 4 dogs at 4315 North 112 Street, recommended for approval for 2 years. SP 2003-2014-2, Harmony and Chris Tate. Special use permit for a kennel for 3 dogs at 4619 Lafayette Avenue, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 4, SP 2014-4, Curtis Peterson with Posanelli PC. Special use permit for signage for Schlitterbahn Water Park at 9400 State Avenue, recommended for approval for 5 years. Miscellaneous. Item number 1, consideration of certain amendments to Chapter 27, Planning and Development of Kansas City, Kansas Code of Ordinances, generally concerning floor plans, including Sections 27-548 through 27558B. The code will be updated to meet new state and federal criteria and when adopted, updated firm maps recommended for approval. Item 2, an ordinance related to the Planning and Development Floodplain Management, Chapter 27, Planning and Development, amending sections 27548, 27557 of the 2008 Code of Ordinances and Resolutions of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, and in repealing said original sections 27548 through 27557. Item 3, an ordinance rezoning property at 6015 from R12 Single Family District to CP1 Plant Limited District. And item 4, an ordinance rezoning property at 1345 South 26th Street from CP1 Plant Limited Business and R1B Single Family District to R1B Single Family and R2 Family District. Those are all items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on the planning and zoning consent agenda that was just read? If an item is not set aside, all items will be voted on by one vote to follow the recommendation of the Planning Commission. Would anyone like to step forward at this time to pull an item from the consent agenda?
Move for approval for all consent agenda.
Second.
Let the record show I see no one coming forward, nor any commissioners interested in pulling something off. Therefore, the motion's in order. Roll call.
Roll call. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Maddox.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker. The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. Before we continue to the non-consent agenda, I do want to recognize two persons in the audience tonight. We have a fellow elected official from the Kansas City, Kansas Community College, Marianne Flunder. Thank you for being here. And we also have our new interim police chief, Chief Hansen, is here. So Chief Hansen, we appreciate your being here as well. All right, that now concludes the consent agenda. We'll move forward into our non-planning consent agenda. The first item is special use permit SP 2013-46, Lynn Beaver for an event center at 2951 South 34th Street. This Planning Commission recommended approval for 2 years by a vote of 6-4. Now, before we move forward in hearing the presentation by the applicant, I would like to have our legal staff clarify, because there has been a protest petition filed that has been considered valid. That does not happen very often, so I want to make sure the commission is aware of how we proceed with that. So I'm going to turn it over to our chief legal staff to remind us of the procedure for a valid protest petition.
The ordinance provides that if protest petitions signed by 20% or more of the owners of property within 200 feet of the property have been filed with the Planning Commission, an affirmative vote of 9 commissioners shall be required to approve the requested action. Although it does speak in terms of zoning, the Kansas appellate courts have considered special use permits the same as zoning changes. So in this case, it will take 9 votes. Because of the protest petition, it will take 9 votes of the commission to approve the Planning Commission action. It would take 8 votes to overturn the Planning Commission and 6 to send it back to the Planning Commission.
Okay, so the options are to send it back to the Planning Commission would take 6 votes, to
approve the Planning Commission will take 9 votes. To overturn the Planning Commission would take 8 votes.
okay, so it's going to take 8 or 9 votes to say yes or no to this event, okay, to this request. Now, in the event that it is, and I'm not projecting this, but just so clarification so we know what the process would be, so the citizens here who are interested in this will know, if it is sent back to planning and zoning, what happens then to the protest petition?
I think the protest petition remains in effect, and the voting requirement is not changed if it comes back to this commission.
I ask that question because it's a very important point. Typically, when we send something back to planning and zoning and it comes back to us, it no longer needs a supermajority. It comes back with a simple majority to approve. With the valid protest petition in place, even if we send it back, when it comes back, it would still need the supermajority of 9 votes to approve the application. and it would still take a supermajority of 8 votes to deny the request. So that's what's before us today. So what I want to do is I want to ask Ms. Beaver to please come forward and to make the presentation. And after the presentation, we will open up the public hearing.
Members of the City Commission and Mayor, my name is Bill Hutton, and I reside at 13939 Parallel and have my office at 509 Armstrong, both here in Kansas City, Kansas. I represent John and Lynn Beaver, owners of the property located at 2951 South 34th Street in Kansas City, Kansas. The Beavers have a tree storage and landscaping materials currently at that site. There also is a horse barn on that site that has been there, to the best of my knowledge, since at least 1966, if not before. The Beavers also own a business on Merriam Lane. They have owned it since 2008. Before that, that same business was located in the Maple Hill area of Kansas City, Kansas. That business is Beaver Creative Environments. It is currently located at 3133 Merriam Lane. At that location, at 3133 Merriam Lane, the Beavers employ approximately 25 employees, that many of whom not only work but reside in Kansas City, Kansas. They also own 10 vehicles at the 3133 Merriam Lane that are registered in Wyandotte County. The Beavers reside at 5714 Windsor Drive in Fairway, Kansas. Also appearing here, I think he's seated over in the back, is Tom Nolte, an architect whose office is at 9400 Reeds Road in Overland Park. He is the architect for the Beavers and on this project. Also have at least one employee of Beaver Creative Solutions here this evening. The special use permit before you this evening is for a private event center to be located in the existing landscape barn, which is located on this property. And you've got a topographical map there, and where we're talking about the current barn would be on the north side of this property. Basically there you're showing there is a barn there that is approximately 4,000 square foot that was properly permit and built. And what we are proposing is an additional barn that would be built directly to the east of that barn, with the same sight lines and the same style of barn, which is a wood finished barn with cupolas, what I call cupolas on it, with windows, and a finished barn, not a pole barn, not a metal barn. Not that I'm having a problem with those, but this is a little bit different quality. This new barn facility would total 4,300 square foot, and again, this is on almost 10 acres, which is 430,000 square foot. So what we're talking about with these two facilities is a very small area of the overall 9.5 acres. It's proposed to host events for up to 200 people. In my presentation to the Planning Commission, I pointed out this is basically the 4th private event type proposal that Kansas City, Kansas has reviewed in the last several years. The other 3 have all been in the what I would call the Piper area. For lack of a better term, they all involve wineries. This does not involve a winery. There will not be distilling of wine on the premises here. It is a private event center where basically would be rented out by the Beavers and would be available for use from everything from corporate events to birthday parties to wedding receptions and those kind of things. But I used the comparison of the other event spaces because my clients attempted to meet all of the and I think did meet all the requirements of the planning department staff, and tried to go ahead and be aware of the problems that the prior 3 private event centers had in terms of opposition from neighbors and from the public and whatever, and to address those head on as opposed to waiting until we got before a public body. In that regard, my clients have met with the neighborhood on 2 occasions, on July 29th and October 1st of 2013. I had the chance to meet with a lot of these folks at a meeting that was held actually in in the barn that we're talking about, so these people, I think, are all familiar exactly where it is and what it looks like. My clients have met all the architectural, engineering, and other concerns that planning staff has asked to be addressed. We have actually agreed to 12 stipulations, which you have before you, and I'm not going to talk about those in length because I'd like to limit my time, but there's some of these that are important. One of them is the noise issue, and the concern was basically how much noise would drift to the north, which is where Forest Avenue is, which would be the closest neighbors. And where those neighbors would be 90, the barn is 96 foot from the property line, okay, to the north. And at that north side, there are currently pine trees that are already mature, that have been planted. And one of the stipulations was for us to plant a double row of pine trees all the way on the north property line, all the way to the east. What Mr. Beaver does is landscaping. He has the ability, he has the equipment, he has the product to be able to do that, and that was the stipulation we agreed to. This would basically screen the property completely on the north side. If you look on the east side of this property, which is basically 34th Street, where this is located is higher in elevation than 34th Street. If you know 34th Street, it has a gradual rise in elevation, but there's also a separate elevation that's even higher than that on the Beaver property. Consequently, from 34th Street, you cannot see even the top of the driveway, nor can you see the buildings at all that are on the property at this point, either the horse barn, which is located closer to 34th Street, or the landscape barn, which is located on the north side of the property. We believe by having all the music inside of this finished barn on any events after 7 o'clock and all amplified music inside, we are addressing a noise concern. Also, the barn doors would have to be closed after 7 p.m. And again, this is not a facility that doesn't have heating or cooling. It is heated, it will be air conditioned, it also requires sprinklers. It is a finished building. Traffic issue was another issue that was concerned, and the talk was about 34th Street. And I would tell you 34th Street has double yellow lines down the middle of it. It does not have curbs, that is correct, but I would not call it an unfinished road. It carries quite a bit of traffic at this point. Having events that would have up to 200 people from the engineering standpoint does not create a major load on this property, and these events would not be at the times when there would be heavy traffic on it. Merriam Lane itself is a fairly heavily trafficked road and heavily trafficked in terms of trucks and whatever. And obviously to the south of that, not only do we have Merriam Lane, but I-35 and also the railroad tracks. Traffic, we also was a concern was how are we going to let people know where we are so they don't pull into the next street, which is Forest Avenue, and turn around in people's driveways or on a dead-end street. Well, that I think is addressed by signage. Initially, the planning department staff did not want to have a sign there and basically said until this is approved, they didn't think that was appropriate. My clients will install a proper monument sign that's properly permitted so that people, number one, are aware of the location, but number two, for all events that we're having in the evening, there will be someone at the entrance to direct them to the event space during the time that that event starts. They won't be there the entire evening at that location, but we will have parking staff located on the site. One of the other concerns was light pollution. That's why stipulation was entered into as to what type of lighting we would have, how much of it would encroach onto the neighbors to limit that. And again, I think you even have pictures of what the particular lights would look like to address that issue. Basically, this has been, in my estimation, a commercial type venture since at least 1966. Riding stables have been here. Lessons were taught here. People boarded horses here. Basically, what we're talking about, we think, is to propose a higher and better use than what it has had historically in the past. Focus in my clients' cases, and this is based on their rental structure and what it's costing them to build this building, is for corporate events and weddings at this site. Our fee structure is such that there are not going to be teenage parties, other parties of that type, quite honestly, because they wouldn't be able to afford it. Basically, all the users that we are proposing, I think, will be compatible with the neighborhood. My folks have been in the Maple Hill and in this area for some time. They own a business on Merriam Lane, which is exceedingly close to this, and they are concerned also. My clients also have, there is a house basically on the east side of this property which is vacant, and we are not going to rent that out. It is going to be available for parties to change in if there's a wedding, and it's also where our on-site manager will have their office. One of the concerns that was brought up at the Planning Commission meeting is how do the neighbors get hold of the Beavers or their on-site manager if there's a problem? I will assure you the cell phone number of that on-site manager will be made available to not just the neighbors, but anyone else who has a problem, including the police department and everybody else. So that will be made available. Basically, that's the information I wanted to give you. Again, I have talked to these folks before. I know they have comments to make. I will tell you kind of preliminarily that the meetings with them have been extremely civil. I think the point is they would like to leave this property vacant or leave it undisturbed as it is. In my opinion, this is a higher and better use of this property, and more importantly, this is providing this type of space somewhere in our community besides, as you heard from Representative Wynn, in the Piper or in the western Wyandotte County or the Legends area. And it is again, it's in an urban area. It is probably the largest undisturbed tract there is. What my clients are proposing is not going to disturb the rest of it. We are proposing to use pavers. For parking, we're proposing to basically give this as rustic a look as possible because that's what people want when they want to rent a space for a private event. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. We'll now open the public hearing. The way we offer our public hearing is anyone who would like to come to speak for or against the proposal is welcome to do that. There are often people here for or against who are not interested in speaking but would like their presence known. So I will also at the end ask for people who are in favor to stand and people who are opposed to stand so the commissioners can get a feel for the audience, even those who don't choose to speak. We do ask if you do come to speak. We do have a large group here tonight. We would ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes and to keep them brief, to state your concerns, and we'll move forward from there. The first thing I'm going to do is to ask for people who are in favor of this to please come forward. If there's anyone who would like to speak in favor of the proposal, I'd invite you to come forward at this time.
Mr. Mayor, not to have anyone else speak, this is John Beaver. He and his wife, Lynn, are the owners. You heard from me. Lynn spoke at the Planning Commission. This is Tom Walker, the architect, who answered questions. And this is one of the employees of Beaver Creative. So, again, we're not making any additional presentation, but all these folks are available to answer questions.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll just ask, is there anyone else in the audience tonight who would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Okay, I don't see anyone else besides the applicants. Thank you for being here. I will now ask those who are in opposition to this, if you would like to come forward to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record, and we will give you an opportunity to be heard.
My name is Martha Latham. I live at 3006 South 34th Street, but I'm also Vice President of Cross Point Ministries, which is